Today, we are exposing the ultimate unbreakable loophole to the modern Australian automotive monopoly. Car manufacturers and dealerships are intentionally discontinuing the vital electronic parts you need to keep your legendary 20-year-old Aussie car on the road. Stay with me to the end, because I'm going to show you exactly how smart mechanics are intentionally ripping the factory computers out of their 4x4s and street cars, hot-wiring their own controls, and making their vehicles permanently immune to the dealership cartel. For decades, Australians have been told that when a car gets old and the computers start failing, it is time to send it to the scrapyard. If the glow plug controller dies on your 2005 Nissan Patrol or the body control module fries on your VY Commodore, the dealership parts counter will smile and tell you that the part is no longer available. They expect you to simply give up. They want you to walk onto the showroom floor, sign a massive finance contract, and drive away in a heavily depreciating high-tech, plastic sport utility vehicle that you cannot fix yourself. But then the master mechanics in the outback and the suburban sheds spoke up. When Detroit or Japan stops making the parts, smart Aussies do not scrap their iconic rigs. They bypass the system entirely. Today, we are pulling back the curtain on the aftermarket rebellion. Mechanics are using aftermarket engineering to build UN-killable analog machines that answer to nobody but the driver. Let us start with the brain of the operation. Number 1. The Standalone Engine Control Unit Delete. When the factory computer in your early 2000s, Holden or Ford, finally fries, the dealership wants you to panic. Without that computer, your engine is just a heavy lump of dead metal. If you can even find a second-hand unit at a wrecker, you have to pay a dealership hundreds of dollars just to program it to talk to your key. But smart Aussie mechanics are abandoning the factory computers entirely. The answer is Haltech. The answer is Motech. They rip out the crusty 20-year-old wiring harness. They pull the dead factory computer off the firewall, and they drop in a modern, self-tuning, standalone system. When you do this, you achieve the ultimate level of vehicular independence. A standalone system does not have a cellular modem tracking your location. It does not report your fuel trims to a corporate server in Japan. You control the spark. You control the fuel. If a sensor goes bad on a remote dirt road, you plug your own laptop in, read the data yourself, and buy a universal replacement sensor from the local auto parts store. But here is the mechanical reality check the dealership hopes you do not know. If you rip out the factory computer, your electronic automatic transmission, like the 4-speed in a Commodore or the BTR in a Falcon, loses its brain. It will default to maximum line pressure and lock itself in third gear, otherwise known as limp mode. So, how do the professionals bypass this trap? Number 2. The transmission bypass. The blue-collar fix is brilliant. Smart mechanics wire in a standalone transmission controller that operates completely independently of the engine. You tune the shift points exactly how you want them on your laptop, completely severing the digital umbilical cord. Or, better yet, they execute the ultimate bypass. They manual swap it. They rip out the fragile automatic entirely and bolt in a heavy-duty Tremec or Nissan manual transmission with a physical clutch pedal. You physically cannot put a manual transmission into a digital limp mode. It is pure, unbreakable mechanical linkage, and the rebellion goes much deeper than just the driveline. It extends to the physical hardware inside the cabin. Number 3. The Immobiliser Key Delete. Automakers are currently pushing everyone towards hackable, push-button smart fobs. If you lose the smart key to your modern sport utility vehicle, the dealership will charge you $1,000 to program a new one. Even on older Aussie cars, if the ignition lock cylinder fails, the factory immobilizer, like the Holden vehicle anti-theft system or Ford Smart Shield, will stop the car from running. If you try to hotwire a 1999 Commodore with a basic toggle switch, the engine will crank, start, and aggressively die 2 seconds later. Why? Because the computer is actively looking for a specific electrical resistance from the microchip hidden inside the factory key. If it does not see it, it instantly cuts the fuel injectors. So how do you bypass a corporate security module? Mechanics take the steering column cover off, trace the ignition wires, and solder in a 10-cent resistor from J-Car that exactly matches the factory key ohm value. This completely tricks the security module into thinking the original key is always in the ignition. Then you wire up heavy-duty, marine-grade toggle switches and a push-button start right on the dashboard. You just replaced a discontinued, highly proprietary locking cylinder with a $5 hardware store switch and a 10-cent piece of copper. Because what you are about to hear changes the way you look at expensive interior repairs. Number 4. The climate control bypass. The factory air conditioning and heater modules in older Land Cruisers and Patrols are notorious for failing. The digital screens bleed out, the buttons snap, and the plastic gears inside the blend door actuators completely strip. If you try to buy a replacement digital heating and ventilation module from Toyota or Nissan, they will quote you $800 if they even stock it anymore. This is the mindset of a true owner. An air conditioning blower motor is just a basic electric fan. It operates on simple direct current voltage. If the proprietary factory module dies, you completely bypass it. You run a wire directly to the blower motor resistor and install a universal rheostat dial on your dashboard. It might not look like a factory luxury interior, but it blows freezing cold air. It costs $20 in wiring, you fix it in your driveway, and it will never require a dealership software update. But what happens when the factory electronic fuel injection system is simply too far gone? What happens when the wiring harness is completely dry rotted, the factory sensors are obsolete, and you do not want to spend thousands on an aftermarket computer? You execute the nuclear option. Number 5, the mechanical fuel swap. This is the absolute final boss of the right to repair movement. When things get that bad, smart Aussie mechanics screw all the electronics, gut the entire engine bay, and drop in a purely mechanical engine. Whether it is an old-school carburetted V8 or a legendary mechanical injection diesel like the Nissan TD42, you are erasing the need for a computer entirely. A mechanical diesel or a carburetor operates on pure, uninterrupted fluid dynamics and engine vacuum. It pulls fuel into the engine based on the physical velocity of the air moving through it. There is no mass airflow sensor to fail on a corrugated dirt track. There is no electronic throttle body to throw your 4x4 into limp mode when you are halfway across the Simpson Desert. There is no idle air control valve to get jammed with outback dust. If a gasket fails on a mechanical carby in the middle of nowhere, you trace a new one out of a cardboard beer carton, cut it out with a pocket knife, bolt it back together, and drive home. You cannot do that with a silicon microchip. Do you see the massive recurring pattern here? The automotive industry thinks they have us cornered. They stop making replacement keys. They discontinue vital climate modules. They charge extortionate prices for fragile factory engine control units. They think that by shutting down the parts supply for the golden era of Australian cars, we will eventually surrender, walk into their showrooms, and accept our new reality as digital subscribers rather than physical owners. They drastically underestimated the Aussie mechanic. We are not just consumers, we are engineers, fabricators, and problem solvers. If the dealership refuses to sell us the part, the aftermarket will build a better one. If the factory computer dies, we will wire in our own. And if the electronics fail completely, we will rip them out and go back to mechanical fuel and spark. The aftermarket is the final line of defense against the digital cage. The tools and the parts exist to keep your analog car on the road for the next 50 years, as long as you have the grit to learn how to wire them. What is the most extreme bypass or modification you have done to keep an older vehicle on the road? Did you hotwire your own ignition or bypass a broken factory module to save a fortune? Sound off in the comments below, because your ingenuity is writing the survival guide for the rest of us. If you refuse to be starved out by the modern auto industry, hit the subscribe button to join the resistance. Keep turning your own wrenches, support the Aussie aftermarket, and we will see you in the next one.